Like, I wanted to watch the Mum one just for the memes, but I couldn't even muster up to like type it in.
But the thing is, it wasn't even that good for the memes. Like it was. You saw the title, you're like, haha, I can make a meme out of this, and then I did.
Yeah.
And then I watched 2 episodes, and I'm like, nah, I'm done.
Because I want to watch these shows so I can talk about them, but then I realized, like, by now maybe, I don't even know, that 6 months after that show's aired, that meme is long dead, and no one's going to mention it.
Not even.
6 months,
It's
right?
like by the time the next season comes around in 3 months' time, no one's fucking talking
and
about
then
it.
maybe it'll be like a factoid one day. Like, did you watch that Mum Isekai? Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's
You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to watch it for any reason.
Right.
We live in the era of forgettable anime. See, I made a case a few videos back about why I think we're in a dark time for anime, because we aren't gatekeeping it hard enough. But a lot of these anitubers say stuff like we're in a golden age of anime, that this is a great time to be an anime fan.
The new season that just finished coming up is also huge and is not giving me any breaks. 29 new shows, including Oodles of Isekai, the hypest waifu this side of Marin, and an adaptation of the new reigning king of the genre that Shonen Jump is best known for, gag manga. And, if that weren't enough, we're also facing down a staggering 16 sequels to the likes of Kaguya-sama, Komi-san, and Shield Hero.
But this season, we're living in some bizarro world where freaking everything is good. So you've got several shows I'm absolutely gobsmacked more people aren't watching, but it's simply because people are watching other great shows that simply had more initial hype behind them. But I mean, I've been doing anime YouTube for like over 10 years now, and I feel like some of these shows just need a little bit more of a push to get the recognition they deserve, because it's such an easy sell.
It's so interesting how all these YouTubers are all talking about how this is such a great time for anime. It's like they don't even watch their own videos in retrospect, because every season they'll talk about 100 new shows, say all of them are good, forget 98 of them ever even existed, and never think about those anime ever again for the rest of their lives. And they wonder why they're so tired of watching anime in a time where anime is in its quote-unquote golden era, as these guys claim. Recently, I went back and I found a great example of this. The Faraway Paladin, a forgotten, and for good reason, waste of time. Now, to be fair, when the Faraway Paladin was airing, it was right alongside one of the best anime to come out in recent years, and it's competing on the same grounds of being an isekai. Yet, even then, people were still giving this show attention and praise.
Mushoku Tensei continues to have one of the most impressive productions for an isekai anime TV series I've seen. Though if you're looking for something in the same vein, The Faraway Paladin is a new show that seems to have the same thoughtful approach to the world building and characters without the horny. In a show I can best describe as if Dark Souls characters had a slice of life spin-off.
With the growing fatigue of isekai and the monstrous arrival of Mushoku Tensei, unfortunately a lot was riding against the Faraway Paladin as it aired in the fall 2021 anime season. So the big question will come out, is it worth checking out the Faraway Paladin? What exactly is its worth in the slew of isekais that are out?
And today I'm gonna talk about the Faraway Paladin, maybe some of the most interesting vanilla fantasy anime out there right now.
We have got some awesome news for the fans of the ongoing anime, The Faraway Paladin. Today we got episode 11 of this ongoing anime, and it was the second last episode of the first season. But we have already got an announcement for season 2.
There is a straight up ridiculous amount of fantastic anime airing this season. However, one of the best is arguably being overshadowed by the more mainstream titles, which means that you're probably overlooking it. The anime I'm talking about is, of course, The Faraway Paladin.
But Unseen, what if I watch the first 2 episodes and don't like any of these characters?
Well, first off, that makes you a sociopath, and secondly, it's nearly impossible not to relate to the main character.
I don't know if the isekai premise was really needed here. I think it's there just to be there.
Isekais have received significant backlash from a large ensemble of anime fans tired of the mass production of mediocrity.
If you're a fan of Mushoku Tensei, then I highly recommend you to give The Faraway Paladin Episode 1 a shot. But it is different. It is not a copy, and there is a lot of differences, but the origin, or at least how it starts off, is very similar.
The problem with AniTube content now is everyone is so much more focused on quantity over quality. They're more focused on getting something out immediately so that they can capitalize on search trends. Anime isn't a medium that begins and ends in a binge watching session. It continues, it persists long after the airtime of the show.
Right now, the music comes out like this. Right. People are writing a review in a day. First of all, you can't listen to an album and rate it in a day. It's just impossible.
You can't watch an anime and make a conclusive review on it after a day, but people always gotta be first so they can get the most views. Mother's Basement literally makes full-on reviews of stuff that hasn't even fully aired yet. He isn't just reviewing something a day after its release. He's making a review of something 3 weeks before its release. An anime, it's hard to even say that it's ever released. Like I said in the previous video, it's a different kind of medium, it's a different kind of storytelling, and in my opinion, it's the highest level of visual storytelling we've seen humans ever create. We all know the saying, a great film starts when you leave the theater, and treating anime as if you can just chew it and spit it out and then you go sell out for Crunchyroll and call it a day is disrespectful. It's biting the hand that feeds you. I'm tired of the lack of gatekeeping. I'm gonna gatekeep anime from the OGs. Fuck him. And with Mother's Basement, you might defend him like, oh, what if it takes a super long time for the anime to finish? No, 24 episode, 12 episode. He'll make a video on a show, then he'll make another video once it's halfway done airing, then he'll make another video talking about the OP, and then he'll make another video once it's done airing like he should have in the beginning. Couldn't he have just waited? There's plenty of other anime to review in the meantime. He could just wait like another 5 weeks for the whole thing to come out, let it soak in, and then review it. But nope, he'd rather put videos out that age extremely poorly that he consistently has to go back on and retroactively correct himself on, just because he wants to release a video before everyone else so he can capitalize off the search results. It's not just Mother's Basement that's doing this. This has become the meta for being an AniTuber. I live in the United States, and from my perspective, anime is turning into Hollywood. There's just too much of it. Imagine if the bottom 80% of all anime every season weren't made, but instead they took the animators and they took everybody working on the shows and they had them join the teams of the top 20% of anime. The same number of people are going to watch anime no matter what. Those 20% of shows would make way more money. They'd be way more popular, and the money would be dispersed across all these people. No jobs would be lost, and it would just be better for the anime landscape in general. In this way, the shows that truly deserve a larger budget can get an even larger one to make even better animation. And then you might try to defend them by saying, well, there just isn't enough money in anime, they can't do that. And that's a different discussion I can have, which doesn't actually make much sense, because if there isn't much money in anime, how can there be so many studios going out, taking a risk, making all these shows in a very saturated market? But even that point, disproving it, is actually completely irrelevant. There is enough money in anime. If there wasn't enough money in anime, Naruto running wouldn't be the crown jewel of the Area 51 raid plans. If there wasn't enough money in anime, companies like AT&T, Disney, Sony, and Netflix, and other giant tech conglomerates wouldn't be competing for a share of the industry. The problem here is not that there's so much money in anime that the creators are satisfied with what they're making. The problem is the viewers are satisfied with the stuff coming out. If something is anime, they immediately give it a pass. They aren't harsh enough. Now I get it. You know, there's people who actually like these shows like Date Alive and To Love Ru and Elfen Lied and shit like that. Understandable, I'm not bashing anyone. I loved SAO when it dropped. But honestly, there needs to be more toxicity in anime, more bullying, more gatekeeping, more people shaming me for watching SAO, and more shaming other people for watching other bad shows. This is the sole separator between the anime community and everything else like Hollywood. You go look at these people in Hollywood and everything is so clean and sanitized and covered in a giant layer of fakeness. All of this positivity and no harassment and no bullying and accepting everybody and all this stuff leads to a culture where nobody really criticizes anyone else. It's all positive. And now the normies, who are tired of a world that's all positive so none of it's positive, are now coming into anime, bringing this attitude with them and saying, no bullying people for their tastes, respect all shows. But they don't realize that what makes anime so great in the first place is in fact that the community behaves in a way which allows for this. Even anime memes are going to shit. Take your opinions and stand by them firmly, and debate with people who disagree with you. Have discussions, be active members of your community. Make videos showing why they're wrong. Make memes criticizing them. Gatekeep what resonates with you for only the people who think like you. What's my opinion on the anime landscape? I think the most brain-dead anime fans are the people who love Cloverworks and think it's not a sellout, bare minimum level company that does only what they need to get some memes and some clout and never innovates. And these fans are the people who don't push for any innovation, and also the people who are watching Crunchyroll originals. These people need to be kicked out of the community. I can go in detail in a different video on why gatekeeping is actually a really good thing, but in this video I'll just get to the point. I think people should stop worrying about what's popular and focus more on what's acclaimed. And most of all, most AniTubers suck. These AniTubers have a serious problem. They all hate reviewing anime and they're bored by it now. They all make content that doesn't reflect what anime should be. They put so much shit anime on a pedestal, and then they accept that anything mediocre deserves a shout out so long as it's called anime. And they don't ever put two and two together to realize why they actually hate watching anime so much, why they get burnt out so much. Stop focusing on quantity so you can only get views. Focus on quality. Stop watching everything airing right now. If you're burnt out, wait for more shows to finish, not seasons, whole shows. And then go back to the tried and true method. Watch the shows with your friends on the same couch. Treat anime the way we treated it as kids, back when we were able to used to have so much fun watching it, when everything felt like the newest best thing we'd seen. Stop treating your reviews like a job, and it'll stop being a job. And be harsher on this stuff. My anime list has such a warped rating culture. If something is below a 6 out of 10, it's considered below average. That's wrong. 5 out of 10 should be average. People need to be more critical of this stuff simply because we can. Did you forget that anime has given us some of the greatest, most gut-wrenching, seat-gripping, euphoric, thrilling, depressing, adrenaline-filled, meaningful, horrifying, enlightening moments to ever be created in any art form? If you follow this philosophy, you can have very, very high expectations. You can have limitless expectations, and anime will still reach your standard. It's proven itself time and time again. So why the hell are people out here giving garbage shit that looks just like every other show and does nothing new a 7 out of 10? Anime YouTubers will literally see the most ugly, uninspired, lazy, piece of shit sellout story that can barely be called an anime and give it a 7 out of 10. And then they wonder why they're so tired of watching anime.
Yeah, good anime adaptation. 8 out of 10. Alright. Just gets repetitive. It gets bland. And I'm like, this isn't fun. Not that I was ever a fan of the online anime community anyway. I always thought they were fucking toxic. But, you know, at least I didn't let that, you know, deter me from the fact that, you know, I genuinely enjoyed back in the day making videos on anime.
I don't watch anime nowadays because...
I mean, you guys know that anyway. That's
like,
not a revelation. No.
But I think that a lot of people think it just because like I've fallen out of it. It's not that. It's that like I find so much anime just so goddamn boring now.
I just find it's not even about it being boring. It's just redundant. Like... I just feel like it really says a lot about society.
Oh my god.
When all it takes is for me to read a synopsis.
Yeah.
And I could probably tell you with 90% accuracy what the first 3 episodes of that anime is going to be about.
Yeah.
And you know, and not even in like an arty-farty general type of way, like in a detailed way.
Yeah, I would like to preface, as we have to preface every argument. You know, there's always like 1 or 2 shows that are good, and I think that are entertaining.
No, all anime sucks.
But like there's just so much like mediocre stuff that is so uninspired and just rehashing of what we've seen before, and just kind of jumping off successful characters and premises we've had before.
The problem with anime nowadays is that, 1, there is so much of it, and number 2, a lot of it is what I just call disposable shows, where it's just not even like a show anymore. It's just content. It's just something you consume, right? So that's how I view a lot of isekai, right? The reason I watch a lot of isekai is because it's exactly the same thing. I'm not going to remember most of them, but I get the same kind of experience. It's the same region as what I see people watching, you know, quote unquote trash TV shows for, like trash reality shows.
So, yeah.
Like you know what you're getting with, say, you know, Kitchen Nightmares or Hell's Kitchen or something along those lines, where it's just a repeatable format. You know, Gordon Ramsay comes to a restaurant and surprise, surprise, the restaurant sucks. You know, and
that's why I also don't watch shows like that either.
The shows aren't trying to take from anything interesting. They're all just taking from the successful show in their own category. Right. So I kind of feel like I'm just losing my mind watching these shows where like no one even tries to do anything even remotely different.
You can
Not
tell
many
when an
people
anime
are-
is just like clearly thrown together.
Like for Mushoku Tensei, for example. Like, you know, with a lot of anime that they speak, where the characters speak a different language, and they just don't even bother, and they just like they translate it back into Japanese, even though the characters are not technically speaking Japanese. Yeah. So in Mushoku Tensei, they didn't just make up one language; they made up 2 separate fancy made-up languages for this show, which is used in the show. Yeah. And I've never seen that with any other anime, especially not any other isekai or fancy anime. So I'm just like, this is the shit that not like everyone will appreciate, but this is one big indicator that the people producing this show really gives a shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Watch anime. Although this might be the first step, it's also the least important. After being an AniTuber for roughly 1 to 2 years, actually watching anime becomes completely optional. Once you've established a large enough audience, you can skip this step and start a podcast where you can talk about anything except anime.
It was my understanding that you watched literally every anime.
No, actually.
Okay. Well, in that case, my understanding was incorrect.
Yeah.
So
where did you get that understanding from?
Where did you get that understanding? Was it from my name?
Anime man.
Yeah, and I remember when I first met you, I remember you being like, yeah, I watch every anime. And I
But then this year, especially, I was like, oh, fuck it. Like, if I enjoy it and it just seems interesting enough and I can, have a fun time doing it, then I'm just gonna make it.
No shit, you don't enjoy anime anymore. If that's the analysis you're gonna give, maybe listen to the people who still enjoy watching and reviewing anime. Maybe consider that we might know something you don't. Oh, and I always see people disregarding reviews as pointless or saying that it's a bad thing to just skip to the end of a review just to see the number score. But that's not meaningless at all. Understanding what another character likes about a story will teach you both about that story and about the character in a very efficient way. As much as people might not want to think about it or sometimes admit it, the stories you consume and enjoy and don't enjoy say a lot about you. And people who enjoy the same stories tend to get along better with each other and are able to play games with each other on the same level mentally without it spiraling out of control and ruining their friendships because they play with different rules. The preferred rules of the games that you play are subconsciously decided by your understanding of character and story and setting and all of these storytelling principles. This is, again, a topic I can get into on a different day, but just take my word for it for now. Reviews matter, and the number score at the end does mean something. People don't skip to the end for no reason. They're not stupid. They're just impatient. And nowadays, anime reviews aren't even taken seriously, and this is exactly why. And I don't think people truly understand how detrimental it is to the community at large. Just listen to this next part of this video by Gigic. Please don't copy strike me, Gigic. I want to show a lot of your video to get my point across, and this is not fair use, but if I just leave your video in the description and tell people to watch it and then come back to this video, nobody's actually going to go to it. Thanks so much.
In recent times, reviewing outlets have become somewhat of a controversial topic, especially if they come from some sort of mainstream media outlet. But you can't deny that they do have an effect on their industry. It's an art form that has given people careers. Good review scores can have a tangible effect on sales and hype, but compared to other mediums, anime reviewing seems to be in this unique spot in that nobody really gives a shit about them. Back then, anime reviews were the staple of anime critiques online. I can't count the number of new animes I discovered back then just because of specialized review sites, and myself trying to look for shows with high review scores. Damn, this has a 4-star on them anime reviews and an A on ANN? Shit, I better give this show a try. Right now though, I feel like anime reviews are in this weird spot in that they are kind of just a non-factor in our community. This is certainly not an attack on anyone still doing anime reviews, nor am I saying that they've completely disappeared either. But I feel like they have barely any impact compared to other mediums, with most of the stuff we see being closer to analysis and editorials, and I feel there are a few reasons for this. Unlike games or movies, there isn't as big of a wall to overcome that consumers need to commit to in order to consume the product. For games, it's a paywall. You want to know if a game is worth dishing out $60 before you get it, and with movies you generally want to make sure that it isn't a waste of time and money to go out and get a movie ticket and taking out a second mortgage to get the corresponding popcorn and drink set. Compared to that, who really needs a full review when you can just chuck on an episode or two of an anime you're interested in to see if it's a show you want to fully commit to watch? There isn't that same barrier as there was before of having to buy physical DVDs, or even just finding and downloading torrents was more time and effort, at least more time and effort than looking up review scores, because now shows are literally one click away. But not only that, by the time you can even properly review some of the hottest, newest anime, everyone's already moved on. To give a show a fair review, it's common sense to well, watch the entire thing. But for the newer shows, by the time it's fully aired and you get your review out to general audiences, it's like, oh, what's that? You reviewed the show? That's cool, I'm already like watching the next season though. And I find this has a unique effect on our community compared to others. We don't have a Metacritic or a Rotten Tomatoes giving us a metric score of curated critics, and because of this, a lot of hype is completely community driven even with how much more popular anime has gotten. But what this means is that what ends up getting watched isn't necessarily the best shows, it's just what can make the most noise as quickly as possible. If you look at the journey I've had with both these series, you start to see a very similar pattern. I was left with a concrete opinion that remained for years, which eventually got shattered when a lot of the pitfalls I originally had were completely addressed or solved in later seasons. Many more of the subtle nuances in the plot become clearer, sometimes recontextualizing massive events we never gave a second thought to, which can completely change the way I view a show now that a season isn't being judged in its own bubble. Which begs the question, was it fair to judge a series that I knew was incomplete, or were the problems I even had valid in the first place? And when I thought about it like that, I realized that I could apply this to the vast majority of anime that I watch. The reality is, these series never existed in a bubble. They always had a manga or light novel that continued the story and explored it in greater depth than any short season ever could. ReZero Season 1 was barely a prologue, but if you're an anime only watcher, you had no choice but to judge it on its own. But my god, does this breed the most toxic interactions when it comes to anime-only critiques versus manga readers. One of the most annoying things you encounter in this community is this notion that if you're not completely caught up to date with the title on every medium it's available in, then any criticisms or opinion you have completely become invalidated.
Oh, and manga readers are superior to anime watchers. Like, that's just a fact. Read manga once and you'll never look back. Wait, this was supposed to be a review for the Faraway Paladin. Yeah, this shit's a waste of time. But hey, I mean, some of you may enjoy it, so I guess if you got nothing else to watch. But other than that, 1 out of 10.
But overall, that's my thoughts on the series. I really am looking forward to a second season. Like I said, there was a lot of build up in the season and a lot of world building that I really did like. I just, again, struggled halfway through the show, really wondering, are they going to do anything with all this? And I think they're starting to. And that really has me hoping that second season is going to be a solid season.
So, apart from Konosuba and ReZero, the isekai genre doesn't really do it much for me.
Also, did you know that 94 different isekai anime was created between the year 2000 and April of 2021? That's just a random fact and has nothing to do with the video I made compiling all that information.
The one thing I'll say about this anime, guys, is I am interested in it. It's interesting. I think there's some faults in it. It just could have been better. I think this is about a 7, maybe an 8 out of 10. It's not my favorite of the fall, definitely, but it's still interesting enough, and I think it's still worth a watch, and it's still worth your time, if you have time, because fall is pretty stacked.
And desperately fights off Stagnate's army, only to be blessed by the power of plot convenience, and seemingly defeat Stagnate. Now, I won't continue any further than this, because I want you to experience the Faraway Paladin yourself. And also, I haven't watched further than this episode at the moment. Nevertheless, the Faraway Paladin is the definition of a slow burn. 4 episodes in, and there hasn't been anything too interesting, nor are the characters engaging. However, in each episode, the story slowly gets more engaging. Also, the production could be better because the fight scenes we have gotten so far have been pretty mediocre. And it doesn't help that the art design is quite bland. So as of now, the world building is clearly the show's strongest strength. Though, despite my criticism, I still recommend the Faraway Paladin if you want a decent fantasy isekai with a ton of potential. Overall, the Faraway Paladin is a solid 6.5. You're not missing anything by passing up on this anime, but it likely wouldn't be a major waste of time if you gave it a shot.
It is good. I do think that maybe it doesn't have the same attention or love that Mushoku Tensei is getting, but I do think that there is clear passion that is being put into the anime, and that is definitely not something that you should just write off and say, it's just too similar to everything else I'm watching, it's not worth my time. I feel like it 100% is worth your time, and at least given a shot. I mean, if you're even vaguely interested in it at all, like even at 1%, you should sit down and watch it.
Happy birthday, Oliver. How do you feel about having Hatsune Miku